Is it good?
I recommend people go and watch this. Definitely for cinephiles. I don't know if broadly like a major audience is going to be super beholden to this.
Welcome back to Kyle and Dave versus the Machine, the Friday video review edition. This week we watched Fitzcarraldo, which is apparently an Irish name.
It's an Irish name because they couldn't pronounce Fitzgerald.
As long as there's a German actor portraying him, it all makes sense. Kyle, what did you think? Give me the goods, man.
Honestly, I really enjoyed this movie. I think I do agree with some negative criticisms. Probably a tad too long. It isn't really all that concerned with capturing the most beautiful images. It really is focusing on this central metaphor of a man so possessed with this thing that he needs to do, which is build an opera house in the middle of a jungle, so much so that he is going to transport a boat overland, based on a true story-ish. I just find that type of manic devotion to an ideal just super interesting to watch. Like, not exactly the same in tone, but the things I brought up in our longer review was Citizen Kane, Lawrence of Arabia, There Will Be Blood, these movies that are based on these men who are like, I need to do this thing, and it screws up their life. There's something compelling to that. Where I find myself is that I was almost watching this in two different ways. I was watching the movie, and then constantly in the back of my mind, I'm like, how are they making this movie? Because that looks pretty real. I think those are real tribes members. There's something going on here. Turns out there's an entire documentary called Burden of Dreams that was made on this movie, which I also watched. There's two things happening at the same time. I was never ever fully invested in it because I was always getting pulled back, but I enjoyed my time with this movie.
This movie is a bit of a weird experience for me. It is both too long, but has moments where it's gripping. The lead actor is captivating because he's insane, but he's also quite frightening because it turns out he's actually insane. It's just so up and down. It's really hard to understand as a whole. It's incredibly frustrating because the idea of what we call the Sisyphean undertaking of pulling a boat over a mountain, he didn't actually fail. It's just very weird. There's a lot of things where it just doesn't tie up in a neat little bow, and maybe that's my entitlement. It does feel ultimately frustrating, which maybe it's supposed to. It's a film essentially about frustration.
Yeah, I can only speak for myself. I kind of pity him by the end of it, while also recognizing that he is choosing to do this thing that no one wants him to do. I think that's what is so compelling to me, is that his huge goal is he wants to make this opera theater in this other town that wouldn't be able to afford it anyways, and no one wants it to be there. Like, he's the only person who wants this opera house here, and he's so beholden to this that he like goes out on this adventure. Someone needs to tell you no. The unfortunate thing that we talk a lot about there is the way that the natives are portrayed in this film, and then also how they were actually treated on the film set. And those are two separate conversations. I do think, to his credit, Herzog tried his best at being like progressive and showing them in the best possible light, while also, yes, exploiting their labor at the same time.
There's so much trivia about the production of this thing. Such a mess. And Kyle brings up parallels between the Fitzcarraldo story and Werner Herzog's undertaking of even making this stupid film. At one point, Klaus Kinski is so insane. He was actually in a lunatic asylum. He tried to strangle someone to death. There's allegations he raped his children. Like, he's a fucking nut. Apparently, some of the native actors, like set people, offered to actually kill him on set.
Even Werner Herzog and him hated each other. They worked 5 films together, but like apparently hated each other's guts.
People died. People were injured. People quit on this thing. The main lead who was supposed to do this got dysentery.
In an alternate history, Dave, I would have preferred to see the movie that stars Jason Robards and Mick Jagger. Because what is that movie?
Was supposed to be in.
Because I would love to see that. We will never see that, even though they filmed 40% of it and had to abandon it and start over from scratch. Like, that's the type of thing that goes into the making of this.
It's almost like they decided to drag a ship up a hill and ended up with nothing.
That's the problem with today's filmmakers. Nowadays, it's all CGI this and Weta Workshop that, when they should really be pulling an actual boat across a mountain.
There is something to that. I think that Hollywood is starting to push back on this idea that we have to play it safe. We're reading more and more stories about real stunts and using real cameras and no more CGI and actors jumping out of planes. This film doesn't lack for any of that. There's an anecdote that Werner Herzog had to hire a private militia to protect himself because they were fighting against the locals, guys getting shot in the neck with arrows and speared and having their feet chopped off. But we get movies, Kyle. We get gripping narratives.
We got cinema back when movies were movies, Dave.
People actually dying on set. That's what we want.
I am not going to be happy until Tom Cruise dies on film.
It's going to happen. Except he's probably immortal. At the end of this movie, is it good?
Try and wrap this
Kyle
up.
thought so.
Yeah, I like this. I do. I recommend people go and watch this. Definitely for cinephiles. I don't know if broadly like a major audience is going to be super beholden to this. I think it's worth it.
For my part, I don't regret watching it. It is not Yes, Giorgio. For our full sort of mullings about this, the backstory, some of the fascinating things, even with she's a co-star, but she's not in the movie enough. Claudia Cardinal is good in this, and she's got a fascinating backstory too. Check that out wherever you podcast.
Dave, I am so curious. What was happening this week of 1982? I bet there's going to be a lot of death.
No, because we're going to start in London with the Laker Airway collapse. 6,000 stranded passengers. No one died, though. Okay. Just an airplane company. Iraqi club Al Shorta win the Arab Club Champions Cup. I don't know what that is, but they won it.
Is that soccer? Is that rugby? Cricket?
I'm not going to click on it.
We'll never know.
Because it's funnier that we don't know. February 9th, Japan Airlines Flight 350 crashes in Tokyo Bay due to thrust reversal, killing 24 people.
God damn it, Dave. Why is that like big news? Why are we remembering that?
I will gladly announce, maybe because of this new section of our podcast, I have uninstalled Twitter, and I feel like a better human being for it.
Now you can lord that over everyone. You get to go to parties, and I was like, actually, I don't use Twitter. You get to be like that person. Actually, I don't watch television. I don't even have a television in my house.
You know what
Good
I want?
for you. Wow. Here's a clap.
I don't even want to do that. You know what I would like to be? The guy that says, I didn't even know that was happening.
Like water off a duck's back, Dave. Yes.
Ignorance is bliss, especially when it's willful. I feel great.
If you need anything more to whet your appetite for this week's episode, I do sing in it.
It's a selling feature.
It's doing something.
Put it on a marquee. All right, let's move on. Let's get on to next week when we are, maybe getting psychedelic.
Psychedelic. Going behind the wall. It's a metaphor.
We'll see.